My name is Pauline, and at 62 years old, I thought I had learned to live with the pain of losing my daughter. For 15 years, Emma had chosen her stepmother over me, and I had accepted that some wounds never heal. But when she called me out of nowhere to invite me to her 35th birthday party, something in her voice made my heart skip. Maybe it was hope, or maybe it was the maternal instinct I could never shake. I should have trusted my instincts about that invitation, because what happened that night would either destroy me completely or give me back the daughter I thought I had lost forever. Before I share what happened that night, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe, because this story will show you why sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most beautiful revelations. To understand what happened at that party, you need to know how I lost my daughter in the first place. Emma was born in 1989, during what I thought was the happiest time of my life. I was married to Richard, a successful corporate lawyer who seemed to have everything figured out. We lived in a beautiful colonial house in Connecticut, and for 8 years, we were the picture-perfect American family. But Richard's ambition came with a price. He worked 18-hour days, traveled constantly for high-profile cases, and slowly became a stranger in his own home. I was essentially raising Emma alone while trying to keep up appearances as the dutiful lawyer's wife. The cracks in our marriage started small, but grew into chasms I could not bridge. When Emma was 8, Richard came home one evening and announced he wanted a divorce. He had met someone else, he said, someone who understood his world better. That someone was Gloria Martinez, a sophisticated estate planning attorney from his firm who came from old money and knew how to navigate the social circles Richard desperately wanted to join. The divorce was brutal. Richard used every legal trick he knew, painting me as an unstable mother who could not provide the lifestyle Emma deserved. He had resources I could never match and connections that went all the way to the courthouse. Meanwhile, I was working 2 jobs just to afford a decent attorney. When the dust settled, Richard got primary custody. I was awarded visitation every other weekend and Wednesday evenings, but even that felt like a consolation prize. Emma, who had always been Daddy's little girl, seemed to accept the arrangement without question. She was too young to understand the manipulation happening around her. Richard married Gloria within 6 months of our divorce being finalized. Suddenly, Emma was living in a mansion with a pool, attending private schools, and spending summers in Europe. I was living in a cramped apartment above a bakery, working as a medical secretary during the day and cleaning offices at night just to make ends meet. Gloria was everything I was not. She was elegant, wealthy, and had never struggled for anything in her life. She spoke 3 languages, had a law degree from Harvard, and knew exactly how to make a little girl feel special. She took Emma shopping for designer clothes, enrolled her in ballet and piano lessons, and made sure she had experiences I could never afford. As the months turned into years, I watched my daughter slip away from me. Our weekend visits became strained. Emma would talk endlessly about Gloria's latest gift or the amazing trip they were planning. When I tried to share stories about my own childhood or suggest activities we could do together, she seemed bored and distracted. By the time Emma turned 12, she asked the court if she could live with her father and stepmother full-time. The judge, citing the child's best interests and her clear preference, granted the request. My visitation was reduced to 1 weekend a month, and even those visits often got canceled due to Emma's busy schedule of activities that Gloria had arranged. I tried to stay connected. I sent birthday cards, Christmas presents, and letters telling Emma how much I loved and missed her. Sometimes I would get a brief thank you note in return, usually written in Gloria's elegant handwriting rather than Emma's childish scrawl. Phone calls became increasingly rare, and when Emma did speak to me, Our conversations felt forced and uncomfortable. The final blow came when Emma turned 16. She legally changed her last name from mine to Richard's, effectively erasing the last connection we shared. When I called to ask her why, she told me, in a voice that sounded disturbingly like Gloria's, that she wanted to put the past behind her and focus on her future. For 3 years, I had not heard from Emma at all. She had graduated from law school, gotten married, and started her career without so much as a wedding invitation sent my way. I learned about her life the way strangers do through social media posts and occasional mentions in the local newspaper's society pages. So when my phone rang on a Tuesday evening in March and Emma's name appeared on the screen, I nearly dropped the device. My hands were shaking as I answered, afraid that something terrible had happened to Richard or that Emma was calling to tell me someone had died. Instead, her voice was calm and professional, the same tone I imagine she used with clients at the law firm where she now worked as a junior partner. She told me she was having a birthday party to celebrate turning 35 and wanted to invite me. The party would be held at the downtown Marriott Grand, she said, and it would be a formal affair with about 75 guests. I was so stunned that I could barely form words. After years of silence, why was she suddenly reaching out? When I asked her this question, Emma's response was vague. She said she had been thinking about family lately and thought it was time to put the past behind us. She wanted me to meet Marcus, her husband, and some of their friends. The conversation lasted less than 10 minutes, but it left me reeling for days. I called my best friend Janet, who had been my anchor through all the difficult years, and told her about the invitation. Janet, ever the voice of reason, warned me to be cautious. She reminded me that Emma had not spoken to me in years, and sudden invitations like this often came with ulterior motives. Maybe Emma needed something from me, or maybe Gloria had put her up to it for reasons we could not understand yet. But despite Janet's warnings, I could not shake the hope that maybe, just maybe, my daughter genuinely wanted me back in her life. I spent weeks preparing for the party. I bought a new navy blue dress that made me feel elegant without trying too hard to compete with the wealthy crowd I knew would be there. I had my hair done professionally for the first time in years, and even splurged on a manicure. The hardest part was choosing a gift. What do you give a daughter who has everything and whom you have not spoken to in years? I finally decided on my grandmother's pearl necklace, a family heirloom that had been passed down through 3 generations of women in my family. It was the only thing of real value I owned, and I thought it would be meaningful for Emma to have something that connected her to her maternal heritage. As the day of the party approached, I found myself remembering Emma as a little girl. I thought about the Saturday mornings we spent making pancakes together, how she would stand on a step stool beside me and carefully measure the flour while I told her stories about my own mother. I remembered the way she would curl up next to me during thunderstorms and how she used to say that my hugs could fix anything. Those memories gave me strength and hope. Maybe the Emma who once loved my stories and needed my comfort was still there underneath the successful attorney persona. Maybe this party was her way of building a bridge back to the relationship we once shared. The Marriott Grand was everything I expected it to be: crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and the kind of understated luxury that whispered rather than shouted about money. I arrived exactly on time, clutching Emma's gift and trying to calm my nervous stomach. Emma was standing near the entrance greeting guests, and seeing her took my breath away. She had grown into a stunning woman with Richard's sharp cheekbones and my green eyes. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon, and she wore a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than I made in a month. When she saw me approaching, her smile seemed genuine but distant. She introduced me to the small group of people around her simply as Pauline, with no mention of our relationship. The introduction felt deliberate and cold, but I told myself I was reading too much into it. Gloria appeared moments later looking exactly as polished and intimidating as I remembered. At 68, she could have passed for 55 with her expertly maintained blonde hair and the kind of subtle cosmetic work that only money could buy. She greeted me with air kisses and a smile that did not reach her eyes. Marcus, Emma's husband, was polite but formal when we were introduced. He was handsome in a conventional way, with the kind of confident bearing that came from a lifetime of privilege. He shook my hand firmly and made appropriate small talk, but I could tell he had been briefed about me and had formed his opinions accordingly. The party was in full swing, with guests mingling in small groups throughout the elegantly decorated ballroom. I recognized the type: immediately successful lawyers, doctors, business owners, and their well-dressed spouses. These were people who belonged in rooms like this, who knew which fork to use for the salad course, and could discuss vacation homes in Martha's Vineyard without a hint of irony. I felt completely out of place. My navy dress, which had seemed so elegant in my bedroom mirror, now felt cheap and outdated among the designer gowns surrounding me. I was seated at a table near the back of the room with people I had never met and would probably never see again. They were polite enough, but the conversation flowed around me rather than including me. From my distant table, I watched Emma work the room like the accomplished hostess she had become. She moved gracefully from group to group, laughing at the right moments and making everyone feel special. I could see Gloria's influence in every gesture, every perfectly timed smile. What hurt most was watching the easy affection between Emma and Gloria. They moved through the party like a mother-daughter team, finishing each other's sentences and sharing private jokes. Gloria would place a protective hand on Emma's arm when introducing her to someone important, and Emma would lean into the touch naturally, comfortably. I spent most of the evening feeling like an intruder at my own daughter's celebration, nursing a glass of wine I did not really want, and trying to convince myself that Emma's invitation had been genuine, even if the execution was painful. About an hour into the party, Emma stepped up to the microphone that had been set up near the head table. The room gradually quieted as she tapped the mic and smiled at the assembled guests. She began with the usual birthday speech pleasantries, thanking everyone for coming and expressing how grateful she was to be surrounded by so many wonderful people on her special day. She thanked Marcus for being the perfect husband and partner, bringing a smile to his face as he watched her from his seat at the head table. Then Emma moved on to thanking her professional colleagues and friends, mentioning specific people by name and sharing brief anecdotes that made the crowd chuckle appreciatively. She was clearly comfortable public speaking, another skill she had undoubtedly honed during her legal career. But when she transitioned to talking about family, my heart started beating faster. This was the moment I had been hoping for, the public acknowledgement that might signal the beginning of our reconciliation. Emma's voice grew softer and more emotional as she said, "I want to thank the woman who raised me, who showed me what it means to be strong and successful and graceful under pressure." I felt a flutter of hope and started to shift in my chair, thinking she might be about to call me forward or at least acknowledge my presence in the room. Instead, Emma's eyes found Gloria at the head table, and her smile became radiant. "Gloria, you have been my real mother since I was 12 years old. You taught me everything I know about perseverance, about maintaining dignity in difficult situations, and about what real love and support look like." The words hit me like physical blows. I felt the blood drain from my face as Emma continued her tribute to the woman who had replaced me in her life so completely. "You never made me feel like a burden or an obligation." Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. You chose to love me when you did not have to, and you have been my constant source of strength and guidance ever since." Gloria was dabbing at her eyes with a napkin, playing the role of the moved and modest stepmother perfectly. The audience was eating it up, murmuring appreciation for the touching tribute. But Emma was not finished. Her eyes found me in the back of the room, and her expression hardened in a way that made my stomach clench with dread. "As for my biological mother," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the now silent ballroom, "I think it is time for you to leave. You have done enough damage for one lifetime, and I will not have you ruining this celebration with your presence." The silence that followed was deafening. Then slowly someone started clapping. Others joined in, and within moments the entire room was applauding Emma's words, supporting her decision to publicly reject the mother who had apparently caused her so much pain. I sat frozen in my chair, unable to process what had just happened. The woman I had given birth to, the little girl I had loved more than my own life, had just humiliated me in front of 75 strangers. The applause seemed to go on forever, washing over me like a tide of judgment and condemnation. I do not know how long I sat there, paralyzed by shock and humiliation. My vision seemed to narrow to a tunnel, and I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears above the dying applause. Every instinct told me to run, to flee the ballroom and never look back, but my legs felt like they were made of concrete. Just as I finally managed to push back my chair and stand on shaking legs, a young woman stepped up to the microphone. She had to gently but firmly take it from Emma's hands, and I could see my daughter's surprised and slightly annoyed expression even from my position at the back of the room. The woman at the microphone was petite and blonde, probably in her early 30s, with the kind of quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are doing the right thing even when it is difficult. She wore a simple emerald green dress and minimal jewelry, but there was something about her posture that commanded attention. "I am sorry," she began, her voice clear and steady, "but I cannot stay silent anymore." Emma reached for the microphone, but Marcus, who I now realized must be this woman's husband, gently but firmly caught his wife's wrist and held her in place. The woman at the mic must be Sarah, Marcus's sister, though I had not been introduced to her during the earlier meet and greet. "My name is Sarah, and I am Marcus's sister," she continued, confirming my guess. "5 years ago, I worked as a paralegal at Davidson Hartley and Associates, the law firm where Emma's father, Richard, was a senior partner." A murmur went through the crowd. People were clearly confused about where this was going, and I could see Gloria shifting uncomfortably in her seat at the head table. Sarah's voice remained steady as she continued. "During my time there, I had access to old case files, including the custody case between Richard and Pauline from 1997. What I discovered in those files changed everything I thought I knew about this family." Emma's face had gone pale, and she was staring at Sarah with a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. Richard, whom I had not even noticed until this moment, was half rising from his seat, as if he wanted to intervene but was not sure how to do it gracefully. "The custody case was not decided based on what was best for Emma," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. "It was decided based on lies, manipulation, and I am sorry to say bribery." The murmur in the room grew louder, but Sarah raised her voice slightly and continued before anyone could stop her. "Richard paid Judge Morrison $50,000 to rule in his favor. He also fabricated evidence to make Pauline appear unstable, including fake psychiatric evaluations and doctored financial records. Gloria was aware of all of this and participated in the cover-up because she wanted Emma as her own daughter." The ballroom erupted into chaos. Some guests were demanding that Sarah stop talking, while others seemed riveted by the unfolding drama. But Sarah was not finished, and Marcus was standing protectively beside her now, making it clear that he supported whatever she was about to reveal. From her purse, Sarah pulled out a manila folder that looked thick with documents. I kept copies of everything because I knew someday the truth would need to come out. Emma, your mother wrote you letters every single week for 10 years. Birthday cards, Christmas presents, graduation, congratulations, all of them intercepted by Gloria and Richard. Sarah opened the folder and held up a stack of envelopes, some yellowed with age. Here they are, every single one. Your mother never stopped trying to reach you, never stopped loving you, never stopped fighting for you in the only ways she could. Emma's hands were trembling as she stared at the letters. Her voice was barely a whisper as she said, "That is impossible. Gloria showed me letters from her. Cruel letters saying she did not want me anymore." Sarah nodded grimly. Gloria wrote those letters herself. She studied your mother's handwriting and forged them to make you believe Pauline had abandoned you emotionally. She also made sure you never knew about the college fund Pauline set up for you, or the fact that your mother took out a second mortgage on her apartment to keep contributing to it, even when she could barely afford groceries. The information was coming so fast that I felt dizzy trying to process it all. Emma was looking back and forth between Sarah and me, her confident composure completely shattered. "There is more," Sarah continued relentlessly. "Gloria hired a private investigator to monitor Pauline's life. Every time your mother started dating someone new, Gloria made sure Emma heard about it in a way that made it seem like Pauline was too busy with her new relationships to care about her daughter. Every small happiness in Pauline's life was weaponized against her." Richard finally found his voice. "This is ridiculous. You are a disgruntled employee making wild accusations." But Sarah was ready for him. "I have bank records showing the payment to Judge Morrison. I have the original custody documents with your handwritten notes about which evidence to fabricate. I have copies of the letters Pauline sent and the fake ones Gloria wrote in response. I have been carrying this evidence for 5 years, waiting for the right moment to make sure Emma learned the truth." Emma was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks as she stared at the stack of letters in Sarah's hands. "Mom wrote to me every Christmas," she whispered. "I told Gloria every year how much I wanted to hear from her, and Gloria would just look sad and say, 'Mom must be too busy with her new life.'" Sarah's voice was gentle now, almost motherly. "Your real mother has spent 15 years believing you chose Gloria over her because you genuinely preferred your stepmother. She never knew about the manipulation, the lies, or the legal corruption. She thought she had failed you as a mother." The room had gone completely silent except for Emma's quiet sobbing. Gloria was sitting rigidly in her chair, her face a mask of fury and panic. Richard looked like he wanted to disappear entirely. Marcus stepped up to the microphone beside his sister. "Sarah told me all of this 2 years ago, right after Emma and I got engaged. I have been struggling with whether to say anything because I knew it would destroy Emma's relationship with Gloria and Richard. But watching what just happened here tonight, seeing Emma humiliate her real mother in public, based on lies, I cannot stay silent anymore either." Emma's legs seemed to give out, and she sank into the nearest chair, still clutching the stack of letters Sarah had given her. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold them steady enough to look at the return addresses, all written in my familiar handwriting. I found myself moving toward the front of the room without consciously deciding to do so. The crowd parted in front of me and conversation stopped as I passed. For the first time all evening, I was the center of attention, but not in the way I had ever wanted to be. When I reached Emma, I knelt down beside her chair, not caring that my dress would wrinkle or that everyone in the room was watching us. Up close, I could see that she was not just crying but shaking with the force of suppressed sobs. "Emma," I said softly, using the same gentle tone I had used when she was small and needed comfort after a nightmare. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes that held a confusion and pain so deep it broke my heart all over again. "Mom," she whispered, and it was the first time she had called me that in more than 15 years. "I never stopped loving you," I told her, reaching out to brush a tear from her cheek. "Not for one single day. Every birthday, every Christmas, every graduation, I thought about you and wished I could be there." Emma's composure finally cracked completely. "I wrote you letters," she sobbed. "Every Christmas, every Mother's Day. I told you about school, about my friends, about how much I missed you. And when you never wrote back, I thought you just did not care anymore." Behind us, I could hear Gloria's voice, shrill and defensive, trying to explain her actions to anyone who would listen. But her words seemed to fade into background noise as I focused entirely on my daughter. "I would have answered every single letter," I told Emma. "I would have called you every day if I had been allowed to. You were never out of my thoughts, sweetheart. Never." Marcus appeared beside us, holding a box of tissues that he offered to Emma. His face was serious but kind as he said, "Emma, I am so sorry this happened to both of you. Sarah debated for 2 years about whether to reveal what she knew. She finally decided tonight because she said no family should be built on lies." Emma took the tissues gratefully and tried to compose herself enough to speak. "I need to know everything," she said, looking at Sarah, who was still standing near the microphone. "Every lie, every manipulation, every single thing they did." Sarah nodded and began to methodically go through the evidence she had collected. The fake psychiatric evaluations that made me appear unstable. The forged letters that made it seem like I did not want contact with Emma. The bribes and legal manipulations that had ensured Richard got custody despite being an absent father. As Sarah talked, more pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Emma began to remember things that had seemed odd at the time, but that she had dismissed because she trusted Gloria completely. Phone calls that were cut short when Gloria entered the room. Birthday presents that Gloria claimed I had forgotten to send. Stories about my supposed new boyfriends that always seemed to come at moments when Emma was missing me most. The party guests had mostly dispersed by this point, unwilling to witness such a private family drama. But a few close friends of Marcus and Emma stayed, offering quiet support and helping to manage the chaos that Richard and Gloria were still trying to create. Finally, Richard approached our small group, his face haggard but defiant. "This is ancient history," he said. "We did what we thought was best for Emma at the time. She has had a good life, a successful career. What is the point of dredging all this up now?" Emma stood up slowly, her tears dried and her lawyer's composure returning. "The point, Dad, is that you stole 15 years from us. You made me believe my mother did not love me, and you made her believe I did not want her in my life. You destroyed our relationship for your own selfish reasons." Gloria tried to interject, but Emma cut her off with a look so cold it could have frozen water. "And you," she said to her stepmother, "you manipulated a heartbroken little girl because you wanted a daughter of your own. You never loved me, Gloria. You loved the idea of having me as a trophy to show off to your friends." 6 months have passed since that horrible and wonderful night, and Emma and I are still working on rebuilding what was stolen from us. It has not been easy. There is a lot of grief to process, not just for the years we lost, but for the people we might have been if we had been allowed to love each other freely. We started slowly meeting for coffee once a week at a little cafe near Emma's office. Those first conversations were stilted and careful, both of us afraid of saying the wrong thing and damaging this fragile second chance we had been given. Gradually, though, we began to relax with each other. Emma told me about law school, about the cases that excited her, about how she had met Marcus at a legal conference and known within an hour that she wanted to marry him. I shared stories about my work, about the small pleasures that had sustained me through the lonely years, about how I had never stopped hoping we would find our way back to each other. 3 months after the party, Emma called to tell me she was pregnant. She cried as she asked if I would like to be involved as a grandmother, if I thought I could forgive her enough to love her child. The question broke my heart because she still did not fully understand that there had never been anything to forgive, at least not on her part. I have been to every doctor's appointment since then, holding Emma's hand during ultrasounds and helping her pick out cribs and baby clothes. Sometimes she looks at me with wonder, as if she cannot quite believe I am really there, really present in her life again. Sarah has become like a daughter to me as well. Her courage in speaking the truth that night changed all our lives, and I will never be able to adequately thank her for giving me back my child. Marcus is a good man who loves his wife and his sister fiercely, and I can see why Emma fell for him. As for Richard and Gloria, Emma cut contact with them completely after that night. Richard tried to reach out a few times, still insisting that they had acted in Emma's best interests, but Emma refused to see him. Gloria sent expensive gifts that Emma returned unopened. They had their chance to be honest, and they chose deception instead. The legal ramifications of Sarah's revelations are still unfolding. The statute of limitations has run out on most of the crimes Richard and Gloria committed, but Richard's law license is under review, and his reputation in the legal community has been destroyed. Judge Morrison retired suddenly 6 months ago amid whispers about corruption that everyone now knows are true. I do not feel vindicated by their downfall. I feel sad for them, actually. They had everything, money and status and respect, and they threw it all away because they could not stand the idea of sharing Emma's love with her biological mother. Emma often asks me if I am angry about the lost years, if I hate Richard and Gloria for what they did to us. The truth is, I went through a period of rage that surprised me with its intensity. For weeks after that night, I would wake up in the middle of the night furious about all the moments I had missed, all the ways they had poisoned my daughter's mind against me. But anger is exhausting, and I have learned that holding on to it only hurts the person carrying it. Richard and Gloria will have to live with what they did for the rest of their lives. Emma and I get to build something new and beautiful from the ashes of their deception. The most important thing I have learned through all of this is that love really is stronger than lies. For 15 years, Emma believed I did not want her, but some part of her still felt connected enough to invite me to that party. Some part of her needed to see me face to face, even if she thought it was to reject me publicly. And despite everything they did to poison our relationship, the moment Emma learned the truth, she came back to me completely. The love between a mother and child runs deeper than any manipulation can reach, deeper than any lie can bury. My granddaughter will be born in 2 months, and Emma has asked me to be in the delivery room. We have decided to name her Hope, because that is what she represents for our family. A new beginning built on truth, instead of lies on love, instead of manipulation. Sometimes I think about what might have been different if Sarah had not been brave enough to speak up that night. Emma and I might have lived the rest of our lives believing the worst about each other, never knowing how completely we had been deceived. Truth has a way of surfacing eventually, no matter how deep it is buried or how many people conspire to keep it hidden. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes decades, but eventually the lies become too heavy to carry and the truth breaks through. I hope that anyone listening to this story who has been separated from someone they love by misunderstandings or manipulation will not give up hope. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most teach us the most about forgiveness. And sometimes the most painful moments in our lives are just the darkness before a beautiful dawn. Have you ever had a relationship damaged by someone else's lies or manipulation? How did you find your way back to the truth? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Please give this video a like if it touched your heart, subscribe for more real stories about family forgiveness and finding hope in the darkest moments, and share this with anyone who might need to hear that it is never too late for love to win. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope that wherever you are in your own journey, you never stop believing in the power of truth and the strength of love. Sometimes the longest road leads us exactly where we need to be,